Hi, I'm Eirene Knott, Director of Code Services at BRR Architecture. Today I'm here to talk to you about mass timber construction. So what is mass timber construction? When we think of construction elements, we usually think in terms of stick frame, concrete, steel, masonry, those type of things. Some people also think about heavy timber. Heavy timber has traditionally been solid wood elements, say an 8x8 column, for example. Well, now what happens when we introduce mass timber construction? In the 2015 International Building Code, we were introduced to a term called cross-laminated timber. So what is cross-laminated timber? Some people call it CLT. And what it is taking lumber elements and layering them in cross dimensions. So you're going to have one layer going one direction, the next layer going 90 degrees, and so on. And then putting an adhesive between those layers. So now you're creating a mass timber element made out of cross-laminated timber. Mass timber can also be made of other elements, but cross-laminated timber is just one example. So beginning with the 2021 International Building Code, now we're going to have 3 new construction types that incorporate mass timber construction. These are known as Type 4A, Type 4B, and Type 4C. We're also still going to continue to incorporate Type 4 heavy timber. So what you see on the screen is an example of a mass timber element in terms of how it's constructed. What we're going to look at next is an 18-story building that was completed for the University of British Columbia. This is a residence hall that was built on campus in 2017. Under the 2021 Building Code, this would have to be classified as Type 4A construction because of the height of the building. When we're talking about Type 4A construction, we're looking at encapsulating all of that mass timber with gypsum with at least a 3-hour rating. And it's up to the designer. They can choose to have more exposure of the structural elements, such as the picture on the screen now, which would be a Type 4C application where the structural elements can be completely exposed. So if we look at the office building example, if we start on the far right, we're looking at heavy timber construction. So this is your traditional solid wood member. As we move across the table to the left, the next available column is Type 4C. So that office building can be 9 stories in height. And keep in mind, most of the mass timber elements in this type of construction can be exposed. As we move across the table to the left to Type 4B, now we're providing for the majority of the elements to be encapsulated in gypsum with at least 2 layers. And now we're going to go from a 9-story to a 12-story building. Now, if we go to the far left, now we've gone to the most restrictive classification, which is Type 4A. This requires all of the mass timber elements to be encapsulated with at least 3 layers of gypsum. So as I indicated, Type 4B allows for some exposure of those mass timber elements. So what you can see on the screen now is an example of where you can have mass timber exposed on 2 opposing walls. You can also have a portion of the ceiling and a wall exposed, or a couple exposures on the ceiling. As long as these elements are at least 15 feet apart, the code allows for this exposure to be present in the Type 4B construction. You can also have just one ceiling exposure, as you see on the screen. So we're going to take this one and look at this a little bit more under fire conditions. So as the building code went through the process to allow for these construction types to become a part of the 2021, they evaluated these conditions and fire conditions so that they could be comfortable that there would be a comparable life-saving element that would provide for the mass timber to be similar to that of concrete, steel, or masonry. So that exposed ceiling endured these fire conditions. Then when they took the assembly out of the fire, and this is what it looks like with the 2 layers of gypsum on the mass timber element. When they took that ceiling assembly out of the fire, they took all the gypsum off of it, so you can see what was exposed in the fire conditions is now black, but everything that had gypsum encapsulation was theoretically protected. There's some small damages in some areas, but as a general rule, that 2 layers of gypsum is going to provide that level of protection that you need. While there's not time to delve into additional life safety features such as special inspections, we'd love to help you learn more about mass timber constructions. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help.